Of the third piece, the chair recognizes Alderwoman Harris.
A piece of unfinished business was filed by Alderman Moore under Rule 41, and I defer to Alderman Moore.
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Alderman David Moore.
Thank you, Mr. President. I filed a Rule 41 with the clerk with the intent to call for vote on Order SOR 2024-000779 to create more transparency around sound thinking, ShotSpotter surveillance, and I reserve the right to close, but I just want to call for a roll call vote on this item.
Very well. Are there any other alders that wish to? The chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. As it relates to ShotSpotter, I know that there's been a lot of conversation going back and forth on this issue. However, I think that we're a little more time and room for productive discussion. One challenge that I think exists here, and I think this is, I think when we were, when I was a kid, I should say I'm a little older now. Maybe some of our youngsters didn't get the, it was a bill, the little Schoolhouse Rock thing that talked about a bill and how a bill became law and how it went through all of the gyrations. And one thing that I find here is that what this piece of legislation does is something that in my opinion may cross a constitutional boundary between the legislative process and the executive process. And we as a body can do some things, but ultimately enforcement and execution of things is not with this body, but with the executive branch. And I think that in order for us to get to where we're trying to go on this issue and recognize and deal with the technologies that may exist, exclusive and inclusive of ShotSpotter, I think we need to have a little more of a committee work on this particular item. And I think in the spirit of compromise and try to get to the best piece of legislation possible, I make a motion that we refer this matter back to the Committee on Police and Fire for further deliberation.
Chair recognizes Alderman Beal.
Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to support this particular ordinance because I think it's real important that we understand this is about saving lives. This is about over 80% of the shots fired in this city do not have a 911 call behind it. Why is that? Because our communities have become complacent with gunfire because we hear it all the time. So when you hear something all the time, you say to yourself, why should I continue to call? So we have a sense of complacency in our community that needed to be addressed, and that's what ShotSpotter does. It fills the void. And let's not forget that many people have been shot and left for dead that could have potentially been saved if they had not got that ShotSpotter alert. So it's about saving lives. Now let's talk about the money for a minute. We're only talking about a few $1 million. Not to minimize it, any million is a lot, but we're talking about a few $1 million as a tool that our police superintendent says that we need. The former police superintendent of police, Eddie Johnson, say we need. So if we rely on the experts to tell us what to do, and that's what we do, we try to confirm experts to kind of guide us in this city because none of us are experts, but we try to put people in place that tell us what's best for that particular department. Now, we're already short over 2,000 police in this city, and you want to take away ShotSpotter. Every person that I've heard that testified that they want to get rid of ShotSpotter live in communities where ain't no shots being fired. That's a lie. Okay, Mr. President, are we going to kick them out like you kicked them other ones out?
Not at this time. Please continue. Please, you all remain from refraining. Just simmer down, you all. Relax. Please continue, Alderman.
So it's real important that we have the tools necessary to continue to fight the gun violence in our community. Don't take away this tool that we need. If it was good enough to extend through the convention to protect the conventioneers, it's good enough to protect the residents of this city every single day. every single day. And so we have people who said, you know, we need more dialogue. Well, those are the same people that got the most shootings in this city. But we need more dialogue. We need ShotSpotter. We need technology like that to help our communities. And I just implore each and every one of you to get past the politics. Campaigning and governing is different. We're trying to govern. Sometimes you have campaign promises you just need to break for what's in the best interest of the entire city and not just a select few people who are dead set on canceling ShotSpotter. So y'all, let's just do the right thing. We shouldn't even be talking about this when we're talking about having something in place that's going to save lives and going to get the police to those scenes within 10 feet of that shot being fired to get the police to go to that particular spot in a timely manner. Time is of the essence. Let's do the right thing and put politics aside and let's govern for the best interest of the people of this great city. I recommend everybody to pass this item.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Lopez. Alderman Lopez.
Good afternoon, Mr. President,
Good
members of
afternoon.
the City Council. Just as a quick point of order, what is the motion on the table?
Motion on the floor is to refer this item, re-refer it.
And I move to lay that motion on the table.
Okay, so there's a motion on the floor to lay Alderman Irvin's motion to re-refer.
Oh, Mr. Hold on, Mr.
Just let me finish, okay?
I-
All right, let me finish. There's a motion on the floor to lay Alderman Irvin's motion to re-refer to committee on the table. So if you vote in favor of Alderman Lopez's motion to lay Alderman Irvin's motion to re-refer on the table, you wish then obviously not to consider to refer this item back. If you vote no, you wish to proceed with the conversation to refer this item to committee. Okay, is everybody clear? And there is a roll call vote that's being requested. Just relax here. Just hold on a second. Chair recognizes Alderman Beal.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, point of clarification. This is a Rule 41 to discharge from committee. This is not a committee report. You cannot re-refer something back to committee out of a Rule 41. Our rules state Rule 41 has to be acted upon and it has to be voted when it is discharged from the committee. Therefore, that motion to send back to committee is out of order. Therefore, the rule to lay on the table is null and void because you cannot send that item back to committee because it has to be voted on.
Chair recognizes Alderman Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. The item that was being discussed was deferred and published. It was never not discharged. So again, this is a different item. If under your circumstances, that may be the case, but what your facts that you're stating are incorrect. This item was DNP'd and is not subject to what you're speaking to, so it can be referred back to committee or be referred to wherever it is going to go to. Again, it was an item that was deferred and published, so it is subject to whatever the rule of the body says.
Alderman Beal, remember you're directing your comments to me. Alderman Irvin has the floor. Just hold on a second, okay? Alderman Irvin, are you finished with your?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as been cleared, this item can be referred to committee by the rules, right? So Madam Clerk, there's been, this motion is not appealable. Madam Clerk, please, the e-vote. This motion is not appealable. Thank you very much. This motion is not appealable. Thank you. I've made my ruling. Thank you. So the voting is now open. There's a motion, okay, because there's not debatable. So once the motion to table the motion that was initially on the floor is no longer debatable. I've heard the explanation. I have made my ruling. And so now Alderman Lopez's motion to lay Alderman Irvin's motion on the table is now up for vote. If you vote yes on Alderman Lopez's motion to lay Alderman Irvin's motion on the table, it means you obviously wish to not have the conversation or the vote to refer it to committee. If you vote no on Alderman Lopez's motion, then you wish to proceed with the original motion to refer this item to committee. Madam Clerk.
The voting is now open. The voting is now open. Please use your e-device. The voting is now open.
With the debate, are there any other individuals that wish to speak to Alderman Irvin's motion to refer? Chair recognizes Alderwoman Scott.
I am so disappointed in so many of you. I am disappointed. I had another mass shooting. I have to leave here and go to an operation for another mass shooting. This is the 4th mass shooting that I've had since being an alderwoman. So I thank all of you. I thank everyone who voted no. I thank you. This is something my community needs. There were 90 shots, 6 shooters. 90 shots, 6 shooters. Not one person called the police. So this is safe for the DNC, but not for my constituents. As Alderman Jeanette would say, I digress.
The chair recognizes, thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Sposato.
Thank you, Mr. President. I know some of my colleagues mentioned about the police being able to respond, but we forgot another important group of people, first responders, that save lives, and that's paramedics, that's firemen that respond to somebody that's down and bleeding out and suffering. And a lot of times, fire department will get there before the police. So that's also an important thing. So let's not just forget about the police. It also helps the fire department when dispatchers dispatch the fire department to send an ambulance or an engine or a truck. That would also save lives. So I just want to bring that all up to you too. So some of these communities, like you heard my colleague from the 24th Ward say, they need help. Maybe my community doesn't need as much help, but I still support my colleague from the 24th Ward and want to do everything I could do to help my friends on the west side or the south side. I'm too a bit surprised, Monique, about how some people feel about this. I'm a little baffled. Maybe someday we can have a little group discussion with some common sense people and sort this out, but we need this. I mean, Larry Snelling, Eddie Johnson, I don't know what more we could say. I mean, those are 2 very, very well-respected people amongst all of us, I believe. I don't know anybody that disliked either one of those 2 individuals. So with that, I hope you all consider that this is a very important tool for our community, our city, make us look good, saving lives. We hear all the time, one life, if one life is saved, if one life is saved. So, or I'm going to say it, if one life is saved because of ShotSpotter, then one life is saved. So with that, thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Napolitano.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm pretty baffled by this as well. I think this is more agenda-based, and what frightens me about this is a push or a movement that has been done for the last 3 or 4 years. I should say 4 years in hopes to get rid of, or 3 years in hopes to get rid of ShotSpotter. It's kind of based off of rhetoric or conversations that's put out there, misdirection in the media of the purpose of ShotSpotter. It's a tool. It is a tool. It doesn't claim itself to be shot predictor. It claims itself to be shot spotter after the fact, after the constant unfortunate fact in Chicago of shots fired. More here than pretty much anywhere else in the country, if not in other countries that are war-torn. We're affected by this in Chicago more than anybody else. Every single one of your communities is affected by this. And every single one of your communities is affected by there's no police service anymore because we demonize the police down here, so nobody's taking the job. 2,200, I think, is a soft number that we're missing. I think it's closer to 3,000, if not more. And that's not even the amount that are going to be leaving very soon. And that's not even the amount that are not going to be taking this job in the future to protect our communities. This is a tool. And I know a lot of you won't care about the way that it was used this way, but it saved a lot of our officers' lives. When our officers were in a shootout and an officer was shot, and we were not able to communicate that location over the radio quick enough in a 10-1, but ShotSpotter picked up where they were, triangulated it, and gave the direct location of where those officers were to save their life. I know a lot of you don't care about that, or some of you don't care about that, but I care about it. And our citizens care about it. And if it wasn't the police there, it was going to be the 25,000 people shot in this city in the last 5 years. Giving a tool to get to them and save them. And like my colleague said, for our paramedics, our street doctors to get there to save them. Because we're not bringing more police here, and we're not securing the city anymore. And we're not making it a welcome city, not just for the illegal migrants, but making it a welcome city for the people that live here right now. And you take police from my ward and send them somewhere else to patrol because we don't have enough police and we're eliminating tools. So when are we going to be on the right side of this? And until you come up with an alternative, instead of paying somebody, a caseworker, to go knock on doors and hopefully put down the guns and stop shooting each other, until that day comes that we're going to start utilizing tools and start backing our police officers and saving some citizens' lives in this city. Because every weekend, 43 last weekend, summer hasn't even started. You know what a lot of you are planning to do during the DNC and how it's going to get really bad in this city, and I'm going to lose more police officers in my ward. I don't have ShotSpotter in my neighborhood, but God, do I praise it in everyone else's neighborhood where it works and where it helps you. Drop your agenda, drop your movement or why you're here, and just start worrying about the people that are killed in this city or the people that are shot. And give us a resource and a tool. Until you come up with another way to do this, keep this tool going until we figure out something else. You don't have to steal that money to put it somewhere else right now. You don't have to. Put it towards lives. Put it towards the right thing for the first time down here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. And again, just for point of information, this is a debate on whether or not this item should be referred to committee. And I do believe that everyone in here actually cares about this city, particularly those who are victims of gun violence. Chair recognizes Alderman Lopez.
Again, good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the City Council. Two things I'd just like to clarify. First, as a point of, again, a point of order, what committee is this being re-referred to under this motion?
This motion is to be referred to Police and Fire. Is that accurate, Alderman? It will be referred to Police and Fire.
So the motion on the table is to re-refer to the committee that already passed it out. Correct? Yes, okay. I just want to make sure that we're clear on all of this to understand when we're talking about discussions and debates that we had this debate in the committee that we're sending it back to have another debate on it. Two, before I get to the merits of the motion, there's something else that we need to discuss, and I'm really getting tired of it, and it's the illegal manipulation of our rules. This little book, you all got it, right? This little book has 59 rules that we abide by, right? And regardless of what the topic is, the one thing that should always be universal is the application of the rules when we have discussions for how we move forward on anything we're doing. Not just blindly making it up as we go along, not pretending we don't know, not pretending like we don't care, following the rules because this is the law in this room. Rule 12, any member may appeal to the council from a ruling of the chair, and the member making that appeal may state their reason for the same. There's nothing in this rule, which deals with appeals, that says the chair, presiding officer, or anyone else therein gets to say, nope, not true, disqualified, not taking it, doesn't apply. Anything that comes off the chair can be appealed by this body, by anyone here who disagrees and makes the case to the members. Any manipulation of that is a manipulation of the democratic process of this room, which we are all sworn to uphold. And you're doing that to stem a conversation on public safety. How desperate are we, Mr. President, to break our own rules for the purposes of defending criminality in the city of Chicago? We want to talk and have another discussion on something that was passed out of a committee and sent it back to a committee. You're not even referring it to a different committee. You're referring it to the same committee. And for what? How many more times are we going to discuss this issue? How many more times are we going to have this conversation? Because I'm sure what's going to happen, Mr. President, is that if this were to be scheduled again in the committee, per this motion, it will be reported out again because of the nearly 30 members of this body, 60% of the city council support it. And what are we going to do again? Come back to this book and say, oh, no, we've got another parliamentary maneuver to pull on you because we're going to do that in a month and we're going to push it off again, and then we're off for August, and then we have budget in September, and before we know it, it'll be 2025 and we won't be having a conversation. The DNC will be long packed, the bill will be paid, and the polls will be coming down because we wanted to deflect from having this conversation on how we keep our communities safe. We could talk till we're blue in the face, Mr. President, and every opportunity has been had to discuss this with my colleague, to discuss it with all of us. Individuals were running around this room today saying, oh, let's hold off, let's have a substitute, let's continue a conversation. Okay, what's the substitute look like? Well, it's a blank piece of paper right now, we'll get back to you. That is not how you have a conversation. We've had a conversation, we've had many conversations. We've had whole campaigns and elections based on conversations. And what we still don't talk about is what is so infuriating, especially for those who need a reminder. This is technology. For all of the gaslighting attempts, technology does what it's created to do. And this is created to detect sound, particularly a gunshot. This technology brought our police to Ariana Preston. Do we remember her? Police officer killed going home. Do we remember her? I know I was at her funeral. I remember her. Luis Huesca, not a month ago. Do you remember him? I was at his funeral, as were 17 of you. ShotSpotter, a technology some of you in here call racist, brought our officers to their location, either because 911 wasn't called or it was called to the wrong location, but ShotSpotter was able to inform our officers, inform our first responders where to go. That's what you want to keep talking about in committee? When you have innocent victims who have died on the street, waiting for someone to call 911 and have only had help arrive because of ShotSpotter, that's what you want to keep talking about? To try to justify why you need to get rid of this? There are individuals in this room where we've gone to memorials for victims who were lying shot dead on the street for an hour. Died because no one ever showed up, because there was no ShotSpotter in their community. That's what we're going to keep talking about? 260,000 bullets rained on the streets of the city of Chicago last year. That's how much evidence has been collected because of the technology that nobody wants anymore. Because we're committed to an agenda, we're committed to talking about this again, just so we could talk about it again. And in the meantime, how many more dead people, dead Chicagoans are gonna be here as we talk about it again and again and again and then again? Mr. President, we don't need to send this back to committee. We don't need to have more conversations. We don't need to play stupid because we know what this is about. There are those of us who stand with victims and stand with law enforcement, and there are those of us who are politicizing this so that they can continue to stand with criminals. It's an abomination, and I urge all my colleagues to vote against this referral so we could get back to the original motion asked by the sponsor for an immediate roll call on this item. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderwoman Tabarez.
Imagine for a moment we had the technology to send an alert every time smoke was detected in the building. It doesn't mean there's always a fire, but it's common sense to use it anyway. Imagine we had the technology to send an alert every time motion was detected inside your business when it's closed, or your house when you're out of town. It doesn't mean there is always somebody breaking in, but it's common sense to have a security alarm just in case. Imagine having the technology to send an alert every time a likely gun is fired in your neighborhood, on your block, outside your house. It does not mean there is somebody shot, but it's common sense. Because the fact is, sometimes there is a fire, there is a burglar, and in this city, there's often somebody shot. All of the experts, people in law enforcement who actually use the technology, and the vast majority of people who live in communities where it is deployed agree that ShotSpotter is a vital tool. If I want a medical diagnosis, I'm going to see a doctor. If I need a bridge built, I'm calling an engineer. Let's listen to the experts and the people living in these communities when making these decisions. So why are we listening to a bunch of activists that know nothing about how this tool is used and really just want to divest a vital emergency response resource from communities of color to use the money for their own pet projects? ShotSpotter cuts response times, allows officers to render medical aid faster, preserve evidence, and yes, make arrests. Opponents do not want to face this fact because by their logic, we might as well be cutting ambulances services too, CFD engines, along with smoke detectors and burglar alarms. Let's be real. This is about money. They want to divest a life-saving tool to put cash in their pockets to address root causes. The city just spoke loud and clear with the defeat of the Bring Home Chicago effort. They do not trust these undefined plans where organizers say, just give us the money and trust us. We can expand opportunity through job training, programming, incentivizing business investment to create jobs in underserved communities and teach young people the skills to succeed, all while keeping this vital public safety infrastructure in place. This is not an either or. This is a both and. But it's being framed as a mutually exclusive decision because yes, we owe the people of this city to work to create opportunities in their communities. But we also have the responsibility to invest in making sure they are as safe as possible on their way to their new school or their new job. So I make this pledge. I'm going to fight every moment that I have a seat on this council with as many tools as possible to keep our communities free of gun violence and provide the most rapid response possible when shootings do happen. You want to talk about root causes? I want to talk about root solutions. Getting guns and those who use them off the street and saving lives when a person is shot should be our priority. Just as the seed will not take root until the soil is tilled, no lasting change can take root until we have cleared our neighborhoods of the guns, violence, and those who wreak havoc on our residents. If you share this mission, vote yes, but if not, so be it. But don't look at the next victim's family in the face and say you did all you could to keep their loved ones safe and alive. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Alderman Chico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Over the past few months, I've heard people who support it. I've heard people who are against it. But what I haven't heard in this chamber is somebody who's actually dealt with it. I've dealt with it. I've used ShotSpotter. And I've seen what happens. I've seen that it works. Many times, as a tactical officer working in the 4th District, I was the first person on scene, seeing the body on the ground, several shots, radioing to OEMC that we need an ambulance. And the next question we asked was, do we have any calls? And oftentimes, the answer was no. We had 0 calls. That body that I saw down there many, many times, we can't put a price tag on that. What we're paying for ShotSpotter is invaluable. We cannot put a price tag on the bodies and the people we save each and every day. This past Friday, over 450 shots rang out in our city. One day out of the year, 450 shots. And you're telling me we don't need ShotSpotter? You're telling me this technology, we could do away with it? That doesn't make much sense to me. The men and women who go out there every day, protect us, depend on it. If we take 4 or 5 aldermen outside and somebody rings out a shot, we're going to get 4 or 5 different responses where that shot came from. It could be east, west. ShotSpotter directs us to the proper location. And one of my biggest parts of my ward, Allgale Gardens, one of the biggest CHA complexes. We have shots firing out there all the time. We need ShotSpotter to direct us where to go. I believe in this technology. I've seen it save lives in my 10 years on CPD. I ask my colleagues to support this. We need this, and our residents need this as well.
Thank you, Alderman. The chair recognizes Alderman Knudsen.
Thank you, Chair. And I just want to start by saying I agree with some of the things said before me. Public safety should be totally viewed as a both and, not an either or. And I believe in the technology of ShotSpotter. I've talked to people who have it in their wards. We do not have it in the 43rd Ward. And I think it is a good crime-fighting tool. I've talked to police officers that feel the same. What would be helpful for me standing up saying this is if someone on the floor would make an argument that the ordinance we have in front of us is in any way legally enforceable. I'm not in the business of looking at things broadly and voting yes on something that has no chance of succeeding in practice. There's language in this ordinance about what happens to you as an alderperson if you disagree with the mayor's administration. What does that have to do in this ordinance? In fact, the first whole page is whereases. There's a few orders, one which has to do with ShotSpotter. That's confusing to me, y'all. I'm a corporate lawyer. I'm not a prosecutor, but that is confusing on the face of the law and the language. So by going to committee, I'm committing, and I think I'm maybe not the only person here, in a true good faith effort into drafting a policy on ShotSpotter and other technology.
14 nays. This motion passes. On a motion to reconsider, the chair recognizes Alderwoman Harris.
Mr. President, I move that we reconsider the vote.
All those in favor of reconsidering this vote signify by saying aye. All those opposed say no. This motion fails. Very well. Alderwoman Harris, on any other further unfinished business?
I'm not aware of any further unfinished business.
Thank you very much, Alderwoman Harris. Miss Listening. Oh, wow.
I got it.
Miscellaneous business, Alderwoman Harris.